Xiaomi's road to the U.S. is paved with Microsoft patents. All the latest in AR and VR and mixed reality, all the realities. Plus, AI can make movies and music, and it makes us feel a little weird inside. All that and a whole lot more on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today, episode 1525, recorded Wednesday, June 1st, 2016. This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by Tracker, a coin-sized tracking device that pairs with your smartphone and keeps you from losing your most valued possessions. Visit thetracker.com right now to take advantage of their Father's Day limited time sale through June 13th only and enter promo code TNT for a free color upgrade.
Hey, welcome to Tech News Today. Today is our 6th birthday.
6th birthday of TNT.
Yes,
that's true.
of TNT.
June.
We weren't here. Well,
Right.
You were here from the beginning.
I'm 6 years old. We're 6 years old, all of us together.
Yeah, June 1st,
2010.
Yes.
2010. I remember back then. I wasn't doing the show back then, but I remember when it launched. I was tuned into it for sure.
Yes. So this is a show, if you haven't been watching for the last 6 years, we talk about technology. I am Megan Morrone.
And I'm Jason Howell, and this is No All About Android, though you might think it might be because we have a couple of Android stories, and we have Ron Richards on today's show. How's it going, Ron?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. It's good to be back.
Great to have you. I promise we did not pick Android stories because we knew you were on. They just kind of were there.
We sure could have used them on yesterday's episode of All About Android. That's for sure. It was a slow news day.
It was. We made the most out of what we had. So.
We often do. So,
All right, should we get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, some roads are paved with good intentions, but for Xiaomi, the road to the U.S. is paved with patents. Patents they just bought from Microsoft. In a blog post today, the Redmond giant says they've expanded their global partnership with the Chinese company and announced that many of Xiaomi's Android phones will come pre-installed with Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and Skype applications. Sources tell Reuters that Microsoft has sold Xiaomi 1,500 patents, including those for voice communication, multimedia, and cloud computing. How do you two think this is going to affect Xiaomi's road to the U.S. market?
You go first, Ron.
Well, I think that this is, it's funny because Xiaomi definitely has its sights set on the U.S. and it's just a matter of navigating the different challenges, both in the business as well as in the political sphere. And by Xiaomi having this many patents, gives them an opportunity to say, hey, listen, we carry some clout, give us the opportunities that we're looking for. And meanwhile, Microsoft is, this is coming off, they just sold Nokia, their interest in Nokia was 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago or so. Mm-hmm. They're just selling things left and right, which has me even more curious about what Microsoft's up to.
Yeah, it's definitely a give and take, right? Xiaomi gives Microsoft some great reach in places like China, India, parts of Asia with their phones, places where Xiaomi's phones are actually very popular and in large numbers. And Microsoft has that kind of patent ammo that it's handing over to Xiaomi, not just the 1,500 that Xiaomi basically has purchased, but the cross-licensing. And I almost feel like that's a bigger deal, right? Because you have to imagine if Microsoft is reaching a deal, or rather if Xiaomi has reached a deal that it thinks is worth something of value to them with Microsoft and it involves cross-licensing, that could be a really big key to their puzzle in trying to extend to the kind of Western areas, including the U.S., which is definitely on their radar, has been for a while. But we've always said, like, if they're going to do that, they're going to hit some serious roadblocks, and they need patents to back it up. So this seems like very good news for that.
It is. Yeah, Windows 10 is already on the Mi Pad, and the Azure powers the Mi Cloud. So yeah, they're already getting involved with each other. It's interesting. Satya Nadella is in China now. Microsoft has faced some antitrust issues in the country, and apparently he's working on those too. So, it is a very interesting story. I know you have gotten your hands on a Xiaomi phone.
Yeah, the
You've
Mi
used one.
4, like a year, what was it, a year and a half ago?
It was
maybe
about
at this
then. I
point?
remember when you had that. It's interesting.
I mean, I still have it. I have it in the office. Oh, you can use it if you
Oh,
want it to be
thanks.
your next phone. You go look.
I have been thinking it would be good for me to just go Android for a week, just to see.
Well, don't
Yeah.
use this
That
because
would
it's
be.
old.
I just think the hardest, a 4-year-old phone with nothing on it.
We'll get you we'll get you a more modern phone, maybe a
Okay.
Nexus device. We'll do
Okay.
it right, okay?
Get a 4-year-old phone with Chinese characters.
And then,
Yes.
like, I was right all along. iPhones are better,
I know.
people.
This isn't right for me. This is horrible. I can't even read the words. What is that?
Like
Are those
in
emoji
Chinese.
or? We'll figure something out. But no, as far as the hardware is concerned, Xiaomi is very well known for having excellent build quality, excellent hardware. In the past, a lot of it has looked very similar to phones we are very familiar with, be it Samsung, be it iPhone, that sort of stuff. They've veered away from that a little bit in the last year, I'd say, and really kind of started to develop a design language for themselves. So that helps them also in moving into different, different places like the U.S. and Canada and stuff. So excellent news for Xiaomi, and I look forward to it because their hardware is very impressive.
Yeah, and I think a big part of this also is that they need to establish their identity a bit, at least specifically here. And the one thing when it comes to building brand identity is that you need to build trust with users, and who better to help kind of hand off trust than Microsoft, which is, a trusted application that is, omnipresent no matter what the platform is. Say what you will
Really
about
good point.
Microsoft. Yeah, say what you will about Microsoft, but people see Microsoft Word and they know exactly what that means. And so if Xiaomi has Word pre-installed on it, people will be more inclined to trust it.
Yeah, trusted just for the sheer fact that Microsoft is officially involved. Microsoft saw no problem with it, so therefore they must be doing something right. OnePlus has a rich history for such a young company. 2 years ago, it unveiled its flagship killer, the OnePlus One. It's an Android device with premium features and a low, I think it was around $300 price point. But along with the awesome hardware came a number of marketing blunders, including a difficult-to-maneuver invite system that frustrated consumers. That didn't stop the device from selling close to 1 million devices when the company expected something more along the lines of 50,000. CEO Carl Pei says that the invite system was essential to ensuring the company wouldn't buckle under that demand. They really wanted to kind of be overprotective at that point and make sure that they could fulfill what they had. The invite system was used on the OnePlus 2 last year, and this time around, Pei says the invite system is no more. It's done, saying it's about time we stopped giving ourselves excuses in regards to how OnePlus is handling the supply chain, just kind of like taking it like they're wearing their big company pants, and they're becoming a real company. I don't know.
Yeah, this is really the moment in the maturation of OnePlus that I've been waiting for. Is that I was surprised they did the invite system with the OnePlus 2, because I would have thought that after the success of the OnePlus 1's launch, they would have grown to a point to handle their manufacturing, to handle the demand. But maybe they needed a little more time, and I think that now that it's gone, that shows that they're kind of here to stay. And it'll be interesting to see what the sales are like when they're not unencumbered by an invite system.
Yeah, I don't know much about these phones either, but I think that
I can lend you the OnePlus One.
Is that the one?
Actually, the OnePlus One or the OnePlus 2. Which one do you want to run? Yes, that's the one you should run.
You have so many Android phones. But I think what's interesting to me about this story is how the internet makes it so much easier to sell things, but so much more difficult and complicated. Like, you think about Gmail had great success with the invite system, but Gmail was free. Like, I think maybe an invite system works for something that comes from a company that you already knew, Google, that was already established, and you weren't going to pay for it. But the invite system kind of made it seem like, like same with Inbox, like I'm special. I have an invite. It wasn't something you're paying for.
Yeah, except with there's a different, and you made a good point, but there's a difference between software and actual hardware. And the invite system, or we've seen like with pre-sales platforms like Crowd Supply or Kickstarter or Indiegogo and things like that. They need to know how many phones to make. And it can be frustrating because on one side I see the invite system working in OnePlus's benefit because we can control the flow of the production, and manufacturing is really hard. Like that's the one thing I've learned over the past couple of years is that hardware manufacturing is incredibly difficult, and to show up on the scene and say, hey, we're for sale, and either make 1 million phones and sell 10 or make 10 phones and sell 1 million, both are problems that the invite system would solve. But again, I think that they leaned on it a bit too long, and that's why I'm glad to see that it's gone.
Yeah, it's in some way it definitely. I understand where he's coming from as far as it being kind of essential early on. I mean, they were a young company and they came out with an excellent phone. So in many ways, they overcame a very large hurdle, and the invite system allowed them to do that. In some ways, I feel like comparing them to Pebble and Pebble's continued reliance on Kickstarter, keeping on going back to that well, which I guess works for them, but it also in that case kind of feels a little bit like a crutch as well. And it's like, okay, get your big company pants on and instead become a big company.
And I think that's a good point, Jason. I think actually the challenge with that is less about Pebble's dependence on Kickstarter and more about the paradigm shift that consumers have to realize about what Kickstarter actually is. Mm-hmm. Because when Kickstarter launched, this is a way to help fund projects. And these are people who want to create things. They need your help. And what companies like Pebble have done is that they've morphed Kickstarter into a pre-order platform.
Yeah.
Period. There is Pebble is going to make that watch no matter what, and all you're doing is using Kickstarter to get your pre-order in, as opposed to going to their website to do the pre-order. And probably they're doing that because Kickstarter is saying, "Hey, we'll help market it." Well, because Kickstarter gets a cut of those sales. Mm-hmm. So Kickstarter really has morphed from what it originally was meant to be, and still is in some areas. But in terms of hardware and consumer electronics, I mean, like Nextbit, I have the Nextbit Robin, which I love. It's a great phone. That was done through Kickstarter. And they were going to make that phone no matter what. They just used Kickstarter as a way to facilitate the launch and the pre-order campaign.
And OnePlus at this point is now using VR to facilitate their launch and everything. They did it last year with the OnePlus 2. They're doing it again this year. You install on Android their, the OnePlus 3 launch, the Loop app. And then on June 14th, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, they're going to show off the new phone and begin taking orders through the app in VR. Jeez. And then if you miss out on that a little bit later in the day, you can place your order. But when you place your order, it's done. No invite. You'll get the phone. So
originally when you placed your order, you had to get it. Were you putting any money down in the invite system for the OnePlus or not?
Oh, God, I have to remember if there was any money down. I don't believe so.
You were paying for it. You were paying for it. You didn't put any money down before you had to get an invite, though, and that was hard. Right. I mean, and so you got an invite, and then if I bought a phone, I got invites, and I could share them with you, and then you can go buy a phone, then you get invites, and then it kind of waterfalls from there. But there was an obstacle to actually get your hands on an invite. I remember that being the problem with the OnePlus.
Yeah, that was the big challenge. But yeah, you weren't putting money down to get. You weren't buying your place in line, essentially.
Which is interesting because another company that's done this weird kind of, or it's Tesla. You put down $1,000, you'll get this car in 2 years, which is amazing to me that so many people put down that money. But I mean, they've said you would get the money back. If you didn't, it was definitely not something like Kickstarter where you're not going to get the money back. And people trust Tesla, and it's something that people want. But that's really fascinating to me. How many people put down $1,000 for a car that you're not going to see for a couple of years.
Techno lust.
Yeah, but think about that though. You just put down only $1,000 on a $30,000+ car. I mean, that's a deal. I mean, I was surprised when a friend of mine signed up for the most recent Tesla, and I was shocked. I'm like, how much did you put down? I'm like, oh, just $1,000. Admittedly, that's a lot of money, but I would have thought for a car it would have been much more. Right. So that's interesting. But again, that helps Tesla figure out what their supply chain needs are. How many cars do we need to build? Oh wow, we need to build 500,000.
This is going to take us 3 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And I think it would have left a really bad taste in people's mouth if they had done an invite system, because already they're, it's like, all you have to be is rich.
It's a fine line because you either run the risk of pissing people off with an invite system, or you run the risk of not making enough and selling out and pissing people off because they can't get it. Mm-hmm. So this is really becoming for these companies who are making things. It's kind of, how can we navigate this with pissing off the least amount of people, which I think is a good way to approach it. It's just it's hard. It's all I have a lot of sympathy for them. It's really hard.
That's what I try to do every day. piss off the least amount of people. So if you have ever felt like no one's paying attention to your Facebook posts, rest assured, Facebook is paying attention. Today, the company announced Deep Text, an AI tool designed to use neural networks to analyze thousands of posts across dozens of languages in seconds. The company says, quote, words are converted into a format that a computer algorithm can learn. For example, the word brother might be assigned an integer ID, such as 4598, while the word bro becomes another integer like 986665. Facebook wants to understand you because it cares about what you have to say and about connecting you to the services you want because of money.
That's Facebook.
So yeah, this is interesting. I mean, it's AI. It's useful. I think they're not just going to use it in Facebook Messenger or on Facebook. They're also, they're creating natural processing, language processing because of all of the information we're giving it.
Yeah, I'm wondering how this could be applied to improving the environment of not just Facebook, but of social network in general, right? Like how AI can possibly recognize something like hate speech or harassment or something like that and make it so that you don't even need to see it because it's already, it's already doing the smart things behind in breaking those things down and recognizing the context and understanding that what that sentence was intended to do,
right? I'm sure,
and removing it entirely
because that was the criticism.
Pretty useful.
Yeah, that was the criticism of Tay, Microsoft's bot. It just started spouting the N-word, and many people who'd been in that world of creating bots were like, "That is not that hard to take that out. Like that, that's been done. We could have done that. They just didn't do it. So
right.
I definitely think it could work on hate speech and selling you more stuff.
Well, yes, of course.
And it just shows. I mean, the thing is that I know we're talking about the money aspects and how it can help you towards selling stuff, but I'm just more impressed by the amount. Combine this with the work that they're doing with VR and just the R&D and innovation that Facebook is taking with the approach to their platform. I think is really kind of inspiring. I think it's really interesting to see that they're thinking of ways that they can make the experience that much better, make it that much more refined, make that much more personalized. And I mean, with their whole goal is to keep you on the site, of course, for the monetary reasons, as you said. But think about how much of we've talked about this on All About Android, actually, Jason. Think about how much of a layer on top of the internet Facebook has become. And it seems like things like this are just ensuring that it will remain that way for a while. And so it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. I have a hard time thinking about what Facebook is in 10 years. But I mean, things like this really kind of extended into entirely, it's impossible to understand what Facebook would be in 10 years. I remember, 4 years ago or 5 years ago, hearing, Facebook, wants to be the internet. We think of the internet as revolving around companies like Google and everything, and Facebook wants to be that. And I did not even understand how that was even possible. It's a social network where you go on there and you share photos. But we're starting to see that, right? Like it expands in so many interesting ways outside of just social.
If you think about it, Facebook is achieving the goal of AOL from 20 years ago. I mean, basically, Facebook is what AOL wanted to be. They wanted to be this place you came to connect with your friends and family and, absorb content and enjoy, and share ideas and talk and all this sort of stuff, but within the walls of our little garden. And, where AOL failed because probably right idea, probably too soon, or for whatever other reasons, merging with Time Warner, et cetera, but Facebook is achieving that dream. I mean, that is the goal of Facebook, is to have you come onto Facebook and stay there. If you look at what they do on their apps, the instant view, you see an article. So much of my Facebook feed is people posting interesting articles and other things posted on the internet. And slowly but surely, a lot of those major media sites are adapting their sites so they just load in the browser on the Facebook app. I never leave Facebook, even though I'm reading this article on Medium.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much nuance in conversation, written and spoken conversation, that I just think Facebook would never be able to understand this. And then it seems like it's getting pretty close, and that's frightening to me. I think
it's going to.
It really is. So
I mean, and by the way, AI and VR are total themes through today's show. But I mean, in the other AI stories that we're talking about, I mean, it's very similar to this. AI is a crazy thing, and we're starting to hear so much about it right now, and to really kind of understand kind of the potential of what this means long term. I feel like we're kind of at the beginning of it really kind of accelerating, and it's just fascinating to see where it's leading, including this next story. AI can do some crazy things, as we're talking about, but what about being creative? Google's Project Magenta takes its machine learning smarts and applies them to music and to art. This means that in the future, possibly not too distant, Google might be writing the music that you listen to. If you don't believe me, actually, Anthony, there is a player on the page. Go ahead. Oh, actually, sorry, the other link. Well, that's another example of it. But on the first page, there is a song
from the article.
The very first song that it has written all by itself on the article page. If you want to play that, feast your ears on this. So basically, so what are you hearing here other than like four notes that are playing and whatever, and it kind of meanders and goes off? Essentially, it was fed 4 notes up front. Now, the drums are not the AI. The drums were there for effect to kind of give you a frame. Basically, the AI created the melody, the piano melody. It's a 90-second piano melody derived from 4 notes up front. So 4 notes were fed into it, and then it kind of took off. Now, if you want to play the video that I had there, sorry to put you through these player gymnastics.
But a robot could do your job, Anthony, so better watch out.
And this was from last week at Moogfest, where...
Moogfest.
Moogfest.
Yeah.
No, it's not Moog, it's Moog.
Is it Moog?
Yeah. And it's not the most impressive thing, but Google took those first 4 notes and then created a melody around it. Like, on one hand, I'm like, okay, well, you could randomize this stuff. But on the other hand, it's fascinating to know that a computer isn't just taking things and randomizing it. It's actually internalizing it in its own crazy, weird AI sort of way. And it has, I don't know, it has a frame of reference around this. And it comes up with stuff that we could possibly hear computer-generated music like top to bottom. I don't think it's too far of a stretch to think that that might actually ultimately become something that sounds pleasing.
And as a musician, does that bother you?
No, because everybody likes different types of music, and everybody likes Miku Asuni, right? That's the robot singer from Japan. And she is. She sells out stadiums. Check this out.
But Megan brings up a good question, though. I mean, because I feel like music is one of those, at least for me, music is one of those really personal expressions of art, you know, and can that be computer generated? Is it still art if it lacks the human touch?
Well, there's a lot of things right now that lack the human touch that people love. Autotune, for example. Sure, there may have been someone there at the controls doing it, but I mean, people are taking an analog voice, a recorded voice with a microphone, and smashing it into a robotic voice just by the tune that they're, perfecting it with things like autotune. And people love it. Not everybody.
Do they love it? Do they love it?
Yes. People do love it.
Some people do.
Otherwise, they wouldn't have been making music like this for 10 to 12 years now and selling millions upon millions of copies of it. Well, I don't love it. You don't love it, but somebody does.
I think this is interesting because my knee-jerk reaction to this was like, oh, computers can't create art. But then I started to do some research and I was thinking about, like, what about painting versus photography? Like, I'm sure they were having this same conversation. Like, here's a piece of technology that can, take a photo. And artists were like, well, that's not, or like digital photography, all these things. I mean, technology moves ahead and people still like what it creates.
Yeah, it just creates something different. Anthony, I'm going to put in one more link for you. Sorry, I just put it at the very bottom of the list there. At Google I.O., and I guess it was originally shown off at Mobile World Congress, but at Google I.O. I saw this firsthand. It's a Nexus 6P that's connected to this gigantic machine that dangles that little writing mechanism from 2 strings. And what you do is you feed it a photo, and it does this artistic kind of line drawn interpretation. The computer actually creates this, and is able to draw it in an analog form. So, we're seeing all sorts of different like artistic renditions. It's just a different perspective. In this case, it's a computerized perspective versus a human touch. And does creative expression have to be human? I don't know. I guess that's the overarching question. But very cool stuff. Very interesting. I'm very curious to see, because I think a lot of stuff that you hear on the radio is very electronic based. People are used to electronic music being the foundation of a lot of what we hear, whether we realize it is or not. So what's to say a computer couldn't create music that's actually pleasing to the ear? Maybe better than the piano melody that we just heard.
Yeah.
That's the beginning. That's the first song it's ever written. So cut it some slack.
I'll give it credit. It's better than any song I've ever written.
There you go.
Me too.
I love it, though. All right, up next, Russell Hawley joins us from his new digs at VR Heads. I'm curious to know whether he'll be doing the interview from inside a virtual reality wonderland or not, so stay tuned to find out. But before that, let's take a minute to thank Tracker, the sponsor of this episode. With advancements in technology, we have all sorts of smart things, smart cars, smart phones, smart homes. Losing things, losing your possession is going to make you feel a whole lot less than smart. And that's what Tracker's all about. It makes losing things a thing of the past. I know, I think we've all kind of been there. You lose your keys. You don't know where you put them. Oh, hey, it turns out they're underneath the couch cushion. But how would you ever know? Because that's not the first place that you look. You attach the Tracker to those keys, and then you can find it easily. It's a coin-sized device. It'll locate all types of things. It doesn't have to just be keys. It could be wallets, computers, even pets. Throw it on the collar, and in seconds, you're going to find it. Pair Tracker to your iOS or Android device. You can attach it to anything. It has a key loop or adhesive if you prefer, and you'll find its precise location with a tap of a button. It's really that easy. You can customize the two-way separation alerts inside the app, and you'll receive notifications before you leave your item behind. So you'll know when you're on your way out the door that it's actually in the other room and you need it. If you lose your phone, you press the button on Tracker and your phone rings, even when it's on silent, which is kind of a key part of that. The Tracker Bravo is constructed with just a beautiful anodized aluminum. It's super thin, it's incredibly durable, and it's always providing that tracking that you need. With over 1.5 million devices, Tracker has the largest crowd GPS network in the world. So your lost item shows up on a map, even if it happens to be miles away. Tracker recently introduced Tracker Atlas, which works with your Tracker Bravo or third-party Bluetooth tracker, and that'll pinpoint your items on a customizable floor plan of your home. So you will know when it's underneath the couch cushion. Save time and energy by simply asking Tracker Atlas where your item is. You'll instantly get an answer, no need to search. And Tracker is enabled by Bluetooth Low Energy, LE, so the battery lasts over 1 year. You can also purchase a water-resistant case, which is awesome for pet collars, like I said earlier. The hardest thing you'll ever have to find is their website. So just go to thetracker.com. Don't miss their Father's Day limited time sale from now through June 13th only. You buy 2 devices, you'll get 2 for free. So you can keep a couple and give a couple to your dad or your mom and dad, whatever. Plus, just for our audience, enter promo code TNT, and you'll get a free color upgrade. That's TheTracker.com, promo code TNT. And we thank Tracker for their support.
VR enthusiasts, listen up. If you want to learn more about the stuff you love and see what everyone is doing with it, we have a new resource for you. It's called VR Heads. It's a news site and a community. Here to talk about it is Russell Hawley, frequent guest on the network and editor of VR Heads. Welcome, Russell.
Thank you.
How you doing, Russell?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Awesome.
Good day, good launch day.
Oh yeah, it's been a very exciting day. Lots of really cool people that I just didn't imagine the amount of people who had already been using VR in one form or another, kind of sharing all of the things that they are doing with it already. It's very, very cool. I'm always surprised by just how many new things there are to do in all of the different, virtual reality systems that are available right now. There's always something new to do. It's a lot of fun.
So you say it's for people who love VR, like not just one platform, but all the platforms. Is it also, you also have some guides, like everything you ever needed to know. Is it also for someone who doesn't know a lot about VR and wants to get more involved?
Yeah, that's exactly where I wanted to start was, answering a lot of the basic questions because, the most that you get from a lot of places is, pictures of this kind of bulky thing on someone's face with not a whole lot of explanation of what's going on the other side. And that's a really hard conversation to start unless you go all the way back to the beginning and kind of explain what all of this is and how it works. And so that's where I wanted to start with this.
I have to imagine at the top of everyone's list is Virtual Boy. Is that right?
I get a lot of comments about the Virtual Boy.
I know. I love that picture, by the way.
I've had that Virtual Boy for forever, and I turn it on every once in a while as kind of a reminder of just how far we've come, and walk away just about every time with a headache or a migraine or something.
I was going to say, yeah, or vomiting. Yeah, because it's painful a little bit. So you obviously play around with all the platforms and everything. Before we kind of get into a couple of the VR stories, what has been the most impressive thing that you've seen kind of in the VR world that kind of is leading to what you're doing?
I think the most impressive thing that I've seen so far is the amount of detail that game developers are starting to put into what would normally be kind of mundane tasks when you think about gaming. The HTC Vive, for example, has a handful of shooting games basically, and the act of putting a new cartridge in the gun and pulling the slide back or the hammer back to make so that the weapon can fire is a surprisingly common detail that is found in a lot of these games, and it adds a layer of complexity. It's this not quite realism, but just close enough that you kind of feel that challenge. You have to remember where all of those individual pieces are in order to keep things going smoothly, and it's an interesting kind of level of realism that you don't see with regular games, because why would you? You could press this one button and reload.
So Russell, we both have kids. I have kids. You have kids around the same age. And I know we've both let our kids experiment with the platforms we have available to us. Do you have anything to say to parents about VR and, 10-ish-year-old kids?
Absolutely. The most important thing you can do is read the manuals that come with these. They have very clear instructions when it comes to working with children for each one of the platforms. The first thing that I did, I guess it was a little over a year ago now, was talk to a pediatrician. I interviewed a pediatrician, specifically on, using all of these different technologies. It was right after Google announced that they were going into the classroom with cardboard, with the Discovery programs. It was one of the first concerns that I had was, exposing all of these little heads to these 3D glasses, basically, with these screens on them. And the best response that I got from the pediatrician was that, these kind of short burst activities, they end up not being a big deal. There's no risk of damage to the eye, and so it's moderation, just like everything else. So it put a lot of my concerns at ease, and I think the most any of my kids have used any of the VR headsets for really any length of time has been maybe 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah, and thankfully, when you're using some of the VR, like the Gear VR and everything, battery life is not eternal. Let's say. So
yeah, that allows you to, and really a lot of stuff with the simpler ones, like cardboard.
Yeah,
most of those experiences are only a couple of minutes at a time anyway.
Yeah.
Doesn't the Gear VR have a heat warning indicator for when your phone gets too hot?
It does.
It does for the older versions. Really, they fixed it basically with the Galaxy S7. You have to work really hard to get it to overheat on the Galaxy S7. They did a pretty good job with that. But what they do have, as soon as you turn it on, is a great big flashing warning that says, if you are under the age of 13, you need to not be messing with it.
Interesting. I actually just got a Gear VR because when I bought the Galaxy S7, they had the buy one and you'll get a Gear VR. It was just shipped to me a couple of days ago, so I need to play with it. Once I have an S7 that doesn't have a cracked screen. Still working on it. Still working on it. So a couple of stories. You guys have some VR stories posted, and we're going to talk about them. So this is kind of the perfect opportunity to do that. First off, Microsoft unveiled its new Windows holographic platform at Computex 2016. What exactly does this platform mean to hardware partners, Russell?
So Microsoft had been working on a software platform for HoloLens, and they've been very vocal about that and the way that developers can kind of work with HoloLens to build applications. But HoloLens is a admittedly small audience, and so in order to kind of grow that, they're working with hardware partners that are doing virtual reality in other formats, not necessarily that kind of augmented reality, but so either mixed reality or just straight up virtual reality, so that there is a single software platform that developers can write apps for that work for all of these different kinds of hardware.
And are we going to be seeing? HTC Vive, I know when you watch this video, which this video is kind of nuts, right? It's kind of like Microsoft's vision into the future of the Windows holographic platform. But you see someone using a Vive. So I imagine that means that this is meant to work with literally everything: HTC Vive, Oculus Rift, all of the platforms.
It seems, if it's something that works with the HTC Vive, there's not a whole lot of barrier there for it to not work with the Oculus Rift unless Oculus decides that they're not interested in partnering with Microsoft, which isn't the case because they already partner with Microsoft for other things.
Right.
So it seems unlikely that there are going to be any barriers really for any of the higher end virtual reality platforms. I'm not totally sure how it's going to work on something like the Gear VR, just because there may be some additional hardware or maybe just connectivity issues. Because you're dealing with a mobile device instead of something that's tethered to wired internet or something like that. So there may be some hurdles there, but for Oculus Rift and HTC Vive, there should be no reason for those to not work exactly the same way.
Cool. And yeah, I mean, man, they have a large list of partners: Acer, AMD, Asus, Dell, Falcon, HP. I mean, it's actually, the list is too long to list them off. But do you think this is a really big deal for kind of the efforts, the efforts of, I mean, what you're obviously very passionate about, VR and AR, and kind of uniting the platforms? Do you think Microsoft's going to be successful with it?
I certainly hope so. I think that this is, we've seen a lot of this kind of cross-platform stuff already from Unity and Unreal Engine to do this for gaming, but it's not as easy to do that for the kind of standard applications. And that's what we're seeing here, is making it so that businesses can take this and kind of tie it into their existing app designs for really anything. And so being able to push that could be a really big deal.
Cool.
So you have a piece today about AMD's Radeon RX 480. What can you tell us about that?
So this is the first VR-ready graphics card for PCs that is under $200. It is exactly under $200 at $199, but it is significantly less expensive than most of the graphics cards that are going to be recommended in order to get a decent experience out of virtual reality for the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive.
What about you, Ron? What is your favorite VR?
I'm currently running the GTX 980 Ti, which was it was the build that I ran in order to get the highest possible score on HTC's kind of VR readiness test that they ran, where it scores things from 1 to 11, and I was just really excited about scoring an 11 for no real reason other than because I could. But yeah, so that card was $330 when I bought it a couple of months ago, and has only come down a little bit since then. So this is a considerable drop in cost for, and this is usually the most expensive part when it comes to upgrading a computer to become VR ready, as opposed to buying one or building one from scratch.
Ron, do you have a big VR beast hanging out in your pad?
I do not.
Yet.
I don't even have cardboard, actually. I don't even have a cardboard viewer here. But that said, of all of these, I probably am most excited about HoloLens because similar as Russell was saying, I love gaming, but I don't have as much time as I used to do as I was when I was younger for games. But the idea of practical applications and bringing kind of VR and that sort of stuff into the workplace, I find actually really interesting. And a friend of mine works up at Microsoft, and just the other day on Instagram, he posted a photo that he was working on a sprinkler system while in his garden with HoloLens, where he was seeing the entire layout of his property and see where all the sprinklers were, and then knows where he needs to go to. It was just an example of that, of that practical application. And so HoloLens is the one that I'm most excited about.
Yeah, it sounds very familiar to the Microsoft video that they kind of showed off today. And if you haven't seen it, I recommend watching it in full. It's not very long. It's like 4 minutes, but it's one of those, really? Is the future really going to be like that? Really? But it's cool.
Yeah.
And I can understand why that would be incredibly useful.
It's much like the Google Glass problem. I mean, the big HoloLens Halo thing on your face, as well as the Vive thing or the Oculus, all this stuff on our face is really weird looking, and it's going to take some cultural shift to accept. But it's coming. It's coming.
That's right.
So, Russell, I assume you're going to be covering augmented reality and mixed reality, all of the reality except for actual reality.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to have a HoloLens here before too long to be working on as well. I am still very, very excited about stuff that I've seen from Google on Project Tango, and there's some augmented reality stuff outside of those two projects that I've been following for a while. There's just so much going on in this whole spectrum of products. It's really exciting.
It really is. I completely agree. And you're going to have all the toys. You're so lucky. Thanks, as always, for joining us, Russell Holloway. It's always a pleasure getting you on the show. So it's vrheads.com. Is that right?
That's right. That's the best place to find us.
Excellent. Where can they find you on Twitter?
I am at Russell Holly on Twitter, and VRheads is at VRheads Tweets.
Nice. Excellent. Thanks again, Russell. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Congratulations. We'll talk to you soon. All right, Robert Seals left a comment on YouTube. We love comments on YouTube. We love them all over the place. Email, wherever you got it, voicemail. Just tell us what you're thinking. We try to read and respond to them as much as we can. Robert writes, "Thanks for thinking of the vets yesterday. Just for FYI, Armed Forces Day is to honor people in uniform." And I feel like that one kind of gets lost in the shuffle, right? Veterans Day is to honor those who wore the uniform, and Memorial Day is to honor those who never made it out of the uniform. Very good reminder. But there you go. Thank you so much for dropping that on YouTube.
Thank you. TNT's fan of the day is Andy Laws at Andy the Tech Geek on Twitter, who says, outside Memorial Day weekend, roaring fire and TNT on the big screen. Woo-hoo! We did it. Must-see camping TV.
Yeah.
Not too bad.
No.
Never knew that we would make it to a campsite near you, but we did.
I'd always hoped. You can show us how you watch or listen to TNT, record a video, take a picture of yourself, your setup, post it on Instagram, Google+, Twitter, or Facebook. Use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT, and we are going to find it.
All right, so this is a complicated one. I will admit, when I started this one, I was like, oh, it's Blade Runner. This is going to be fun. And it was fun, but it took a lot of noodling. So I'll see how I do, because it gets a little confusing. But here we go. Right now, we encode video using algorithms. That's how we encode this video. We've created those algorithms to break apart every frame, encode, compress them, decode, decompress them when you want to view it. But when it comes to a neural network, AI, it has to learn how to view video content without our explicit instruction. And in the case of the story that we're talking about today, the film Blade Runner was fed into an AI system to see if the system could be taught to understand video data. In essence, can the AI learn how to take in video and then output its own version, which is basically its own interpretation of it? So it's not like straight, frame by frame. It's actually pulling out data into kind of similar to what you were talking about earlier, binary code, and then reinterpreting it, reconstructing it later without human instruction. By feeding it Blade Runner along with false data, in air quotes, aka not Blade Runner, the AI was able to know what Blade Runner actually looked like in comparison. And they also fed it a Scanner Darkly, which is kind of a rotoscoped film, into the AI. Both films were fed a total of 6 times to the AI to kind of teach it over time what video is and what it can do with it. After this training, the AI was able to reconstruct the entirety of the film, just based on that. So basically, the AI learned how to encode and decode film all on its own just by feeding it information.
Except a little blurry.
A little blurry, and they did that on purpose. They actually aimed for low bit rate, I'm guessing because of speed. That would be my guess. They didn't really point out in the article why they chose the lower bit rate, but I would imagine if they, I don't know if they're training it longer or if they set kind of a higher target, it would be a little bit more sharp. But when you do side-by-side comparisons, is really interesting. What gets tricky here is how Warner Brothers issued a DMCA takedown to the AI interpretation of Blade Runner on Vimeo. But what you have here isn't actually a copy of the film, right? It's a reconstructed interpretation of the film in the same way that I could think about Blade Runner and draw it frame by frame. That's what the computer did. Copyright law hasn't decided whether this type of reconstruction constitutes copyright infringement or not. So it's kind of murky waters. And Ron, you've been sitting here with your head buried in your hands this whole time. What do you have to say? I'm very curious.
We are playing with fire, people. This is every one of these AI stories gets closer and closer to the singularity, and I get scared, more and more scared.
Don't get scared.
Right. I mean, what if the DMCA is the only recourse we have?
Yes.
The DMCA is the only one that's going to figure out that we're being replicated.
Help me, DMCA.
Right.
You are my only hope.
I'm just thinking about the hours and hours of audio and video that the three of us have done in terms of media coverage, and someone pumps that into an AI, we won't need to do the show anymore.
It's
the
true.
AI can do it. Yeah, it'll be fine.
Or
Probably true.
Yeah. I know, that's what I was making fun. A robot could do Anthony's job. A robot absolutely could do my job.
They're ticking their jobs.
That's fascinating, though, and
Isn't
it's seeing them side by side, and it's creepy. It's creepy. It's starting to freak me out. So, I mean, I'm a child of William Gibson and Neil Stephenson. I mean, I grew up reading this fiction that is all now happening.
It's happening.
Yeah,
totally.
So.
Yeah, I mean, this is so interesting because, you know, it was based on Philip K. Dick's short stories. These, you know, both of these movies were. And one of the articles linked to this 1991 New York Times article talking about Philip K. Dick and how, like, his obsession sort of with what's real and what's not real and what's close to real and why, you know, and he said, what is so important about reality anyway in this age of artificial fruit flavors and virtual reality? That was 1991, which is a great reminder. We were throwing around the term virtual reality back then. And when we're so much further, but in the same, like, as humans, it's still very confusing. You know, what's the difference and how that makes us feel inside.
Terrence Broad is the researcher who did this, by the way. So throw his name in there. He chose Blade Runner, a.k.a. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which is the novel that it was based on, primarily because it actually makes sense in this context, especially when you consider the fact that Warner Brothers issued the DMCA for what it thought was the real thing, but it wasn't. It was a replicant, you know?
This has so many layers.
I know, it's craziness.
It's like, right, because the movie, you couldn't have picked a better movie because all that is what is real and what is artificial and am I real, and that asking that whole question. The fact that they issued a DMCA takedown on it is just perfect. And I don't know if it applies because it's as you pointed out, Jason, it's a reinterpretation.
Yeah.
It just happens to be accurate enough to trigger their content filters.
It's just really good. Yeah. It's just really good at it. Jammer B, we all know Jammer B. He's in the chat room right now. He's correcting us. We Can Remember It For You Wholesale, which went on to become Total Recall. That was a short story. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is not a short story.
It's a novel.
We'll go ahead and save a few emails.
You said it was a novel. I said short story. So.
Just so we get it all out
now
on the
we
table.
know.
Well, actually.
I know that was totally well actually from Jammer B. I love it. So yes, I think that's pretty fascinating though. It's really cool to see the side by side. And who knows, maybe now our future is full of AI creating music for us and eventually creating film for us.
Yes.
What are we going to do anymore except watch their content and listen to their music?
Sadly, it's going to be WALL-E. It's going to be this world where we're just sitting on these things with things on our faces and it's things and it's over. Our time is over. The machines are rising. Yep. Just a matter of time. We are inching closer and closer to the Matrix battery existence, where we're just in a pod powering. So it's happening.
Yeah, well, just a pile of bones.
Well, Ron, it was so uplifting to talk to you for this hour. Thank you.
I love the future. Who loves it?
We'll bring you on to talk about the future anytime, Ron.
Yes.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, people can find
fun.
you at iFanboy, at RonXO on Twitter. Any place else?
That covers it. Yeah, no, go to ifanboy.com if you like podcasts talking about comic books and comic book movies. We talked about X-Men Apocalypse recently and the Preacher TV show. Those are fun stuff. Check them out. And also every Tuesday I'm there in the Twitch studio with Jason and Florence Ion doing all about Android. And just follow my exploits. You go to twitter.com/RonXO, and that's where you can find all my nonsense.
And you were on the Screensavers on Saturday. If people haven't watched that yet,
I was on the Screensavers Fest Saturday. Yeah, that was fun. That was fun. Yeah, that's always a good time. So.
Excellent. Thanks again, Ron.
Thank you.
I'll see you next Tuesday.
I'll be there
about Android stuff. All right. Have a good night. Tomorrow's guest will be the return of Russ Pitts. TNT records live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, 12 a.m. UTC at twit.tv/live. You can be a part of the show by emailing us at tnt@twit.tv. You can also leave us a short voicemail. That's 260-TNT-SHOW. And you can find the show on Twitter at Tech News Today TV.
And you can find us on Google Play Music. You just search for Tech News Today. You can find all the ways to watch our show at twit.tv/TNT. Just click subscribe to audio or subscribe to video. You can also find us on your Amazon Echo through TuneIn. Just ask Alexa and she will deliver. You can also subscribe to the Twit newsletter at twit.tv/newsletter. And if you want to tweet at me, I am at Megan Morrone.
And I'm at Jason Howell. Thanks to our technical director, Anthony Nielsen.
Not a robot.
Hi, Anthony. I see. This show's so easy. Even a dog can switch it. If a dog can switch this show, then a robot can totally switch this show.
Perfect.
Over here, boy. Over here. And thanks to Burke, who is actually a human being and not a dog, for running the prompter. And thanks to you for talking tech with us today. We'll see you all tomorrow. Bye, everyone.